Why would Canadians, contrary to our own values, embrace a practice that is anti-women?
Why does he still insist that the majority should dictate the religious rights of minorities?
Mr. Speaker, that is unacceptable to Canadians, unacceptable to Canadian women. And that's why
if you're not willing to show your face, frankly, stay the hell where you came from.
Listening to politicians on Parliament Hill these days, there's a lot of hysteria over niqabs, the face-concealing veils worn by some Muslim women. Lost in all the noise is the fact we've already been down this road before, about 3 years ago at the Supreme Court, where one woman sparked the first big national debate over her lonely fight to wear the veil while testifying in a trial.
Should a Muslim woman who covers her face with a niqab,
she says her religious rights should protect her face from public view with a niqab. The right of the accused to judge her.
Protected by a publication ban, all court documents referred to the woman by her initials. She was reduced to NS. One columnist dubbed NS the most famous person you've never seen. So who was she? Where's she from? And what's her life like now? We set out to find the woman behind the veil. We found her in North End, Toronto.
I was born in Toronto, raised in Toronto, went to one elementary school, one high school. I was a regular kid, I was a little bit nerdy, I think, in class, and I sang in the school choir and took violin and Italian. Otherwise, just, grow up, go to school, play outside, do your homework. That's what life was about. That's the beauty of kids. Kids, we get along great. It's when you turn into adults that, your own selfish perceptions take over, and that's when the negativity comes out. That's how I see it.
Turns out she's not who you might expect, not living in some religious or social isolation. Now 38, she works part-time as a school bus driver in Toronto for kids with special needs. For niqab, not an issue.
When I went for the school bus interview, I had my veil on. And they didn't ask me to remove it. They didn't ask about, do you always wear it? It's an irrelevant issue, it really is.
NS says she wears the niqab in public for a simple reason. It's a symbol of modesty in front of men, like a shield that protects her from unwanted stares. But she isn't rigid about it. For example, she doesn't wear it when she's behind the wheel.
The whole purpose of the veil is to cut out that, the eyes on me. People who are in their cars are paying attention to the road. Even when I'm at a red light, I stop the car in such a way that I'm never beside another car. There's always a way to do that. You just gotta use your noggin a little bit. The veil is important. You're not gonna see all Muslim women wearing a veil. It's not an obligation on everybody to wear a veil. But for me, I like it. It works.
But her hopes of wearing her veil freely in public were shattered when she was thrust into the spotlight. It all started back in 2007 when she accused two relatives of sexually assaulting her as a child. NS walked into the courtroom to testify wearing her niqab. The judge told her to remove it. He said the face covering jeopardized the accused's right to a fair trial. Suddenly, this wasn't about sexual assault anymore. It was a clash of cultures and fundamental rights that was heading straight for the Supreme Court.
I simply got a call in my office one day over a lunch break. Dave, there's a gal who needs some advice on a veil.
Lawyer David Butt took up her battle. He was blown away by the outright hostility towards NS once the case went public.
People saw nothing about her, nothing about my client, because she wasn't allowed to let her humanity shine through it in any meaningful way throughout the entire legal process. So people who came with a narrow-minded, prejudicial view projected that. People who came to it with fear of Islamophobia projected that. People who came to it with a lens of ardent feminism that says all veils are oppressive patriarchy projected that. And I actually chuckled because everybody was projecting. And these projections, they couldn't all be true.
Did you feel the Islamophobia, the anti-Muslim feeling, did you feel that was being brought out as you were fighting your case?
Oh, yeah. It definitely, because now it's in the papers. And now, what do you mean? There's a girl in a veil and she wants to wear a veil in court? Like, what are you talking about? Doesn't she know this is Canada? So it automatically sets people on the other side.
Canada's highest court stepped onto a tightrope today.
After a stormy debate, even the Supreme Court was split on the issue.
It has been a very difficult issue for the courts to wrestle with.
So in a classic Canadian compromise, the High Court ruled it's up to individual judges to decide if the niqab can be worn during trials. NS scored a partial victory for Muslim women who wear their religion in public. But she watched in dismay 2 years later as the issue boiled over again, this time in provincial court in Montreal. It wasn't a niqab. Rania El Alul walked into court wearing a simple headscarf, and she was promptly dressed down by the judge.
I will therefore not hear you if you are wearing a scarf on your head, just as I would not allow a person to appear before me wearing a hat or sunglasses on his or her head, or any other garment not suitable for a court proceeding.
Then there's Zunera Ishak, who's now staring down Prime Minister Stephen Harper, fighting for her right to wear her niqab at her citizenship ceremony.
I believe, and I think most Canadians believe, that it is offensive that someone would hide their identity at the very moment where they are committing to join the Canadian family.
NS stayed silent during her legal battle. She'll stay silent no more.
Well, first of all, I'd like to find out what exactly he finds so offensive. I mean, when we talk about Canadian values, what exactly are you talking about? How does the veil have such a negative impact on functioning in society that the Prime Minister chooses to take sides?
But in Canada these days, the lines have been drawn after troubling images emerged from the Middle East.
And we will destroy you, bidnillahi ta'ala.
ISIS fighters waging war against the infidels in the West. Emotions are running high at home, and NS feels it now more than ever.
I'm not ISIS. I don't behead people. I don't stand for killing of innocent people. So we should, as a society, look at people on a personal level. I'm not going to judge you for what somebody in your ethnic group might do. I'm not going to judge you as a male because all the other males do it. I should, as a responsible Canadian citizen, look at you as a person.
For many Canadians, the niqab feels foreign and distinctly un-Canadian, an easy target for people who claim to be defending the rights of Muslim women. From pundits,
as a woman, I'm offended when I see it too, and I think there are a lot of people who say we've got to set limits as to what is acceptable.
Hi there, it's me, Ezra.
To controversial TV hosts who stirred the pot.
I'm in a one-person prison called the niqab. It's a symbol of the inequality of women in radical Islam.
To politicians.
And I'm a strong feminist in this country as well too, and I do believe that women should have the ability to show their face.
NS says she doesn't need anyone to tell her what she can or can't wear.
You know, it's interesting because I've read a lot of people, mostly women, who think that by wearing this is an act of subservience.
I assure you that I do not bow down to men. I'm not subservient to anybody but God, and I don't allow the men in my life to decide for me. Islam gives women that right to be able to decide for myself.
Do you feel like a feminist?
I could say I'm a feminist, but what is a feminist? I mean, is it somebody who believes in women's rights? Then yeah, all women are feminists. How could you be a woman not a feminist, right? But I mean, I can just imagine the regular feminists who would say, what do you mean? How is she calling herself a feminist? Can you imagine that?
It's clear NS draws strength defying stereotypes.
Strike and grab.
Okay. So, up there.
She's now taking self-defense classes.
Twist. Push my shoulder
She wants to
down.
be an example of strength for her teenage daughter.
And don't stop.
Which begs the question, does the defiant mother expect her own daughter to wear the veil?
It's not an expectation. It's whatever she wants. That's up to her to choose.
Though she's been dubbed un-Canadian, NS takes great pleasure in the very Canadian pastime of getting out of the city and into the countryside.
There's nobody there, number one. It's just beautiful. It's a nice, quiet, you can see the majestic beauty of the trees and just listening to the birds, like I'll stop.
This is where she can find peace. Nature doesn't judge. Do you think after all of this, your veil now defines you, who you are?
No. I'm defined by who I am as a person. What I do, what I stand for, what I put forward.
So you want people to get over it?
Well, in a nice way. We have to be a people of, not tolerance, I don't like that word, it's acceptance. I'm going to accept you if you want to wear your pants down to your knees, fine. Right? I won't like it, you can do it, right? Fine. But I'll accept you because that's a respect that Canadians have. When we're talking, we might just get to talking and you'll realize that, you know what, like, it's just a woman in a veil.